I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Tell these salty motherfuckers to tell the truth. Tell politicians to give up the rooms. Tell silent voters to stand up to the booth.
God, it's me. Can you hear my plea? Feeling like I'm lost in this world, can't you see? Demons creeping in, trying to take control of me. But I'm just trying to find the light, trying to break free. I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. But why you keep forgetting me? What did I do? Trying to have a convo, but you starting to preach. Feeling like I'm on a leash. Can't find no peace, find no peace. Living in hell, can't you hear my plea? I'm suffocating, can't you see? Why you let these false prophets roam free? While the well-run suffer, can't you see? I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Why you keep targeting me? What did I do? Trying to have a convo, but you starting to preach. Feel like I'm on a leash, can't find no peace.
Hardest battles, strongest soldiers, greatest burden, broadest shoulders, pushing up just like these boulders. This conflict like it's water, so this mercy, take my chalice, seeking grace through all this malice. All of these salty motherfuckers to give out.
Politics and sinners, they all the same.
Got me stuck in this endless game, but I won't give up,
won't play the role.
Gotta do what's
best for my soul.
I'm not perfect, God, neither are you. Tell these salty motherfuckers to tell the truth. Tell these politicians to give up the room. Tell silent voters to stand up to the booth. Living wild but truthfully free, God keep on watching over me. Take my pleas and keep the receipts. I just want all of humanity to be free. And clean the seas and stop the greed. I want to see clean skies and all innocence roam free.
Good morning, 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 good morning. Welcome to the Urban Conservative. I want to talk about blood money, street chaos, and weak justice. The system is rigged. So before we get into all that, I want to play some independent music. And this morning I got February 31st and Don Tripp. That being said, I'll be right back right after this.
Yeah, my head spinning on my second day with no sleep, trying to get in the game and make it out the nosebleeds. Life's a bitch, I know to you it looks so sweet, but my soul's riding underneath like gold teeth. Back when you would pay a couple $100 for a OZ, I almost married the streets, but got cold feet. Rode the riches and my tires got a slow leak, cause my entourage consists of felons and parolees. College wasn't never in the cards for a nigga. We was playing dodgeball, we gon' ball till they hit us. We gon' ball till the laws come get us. If they catch us with this shit, they'll send us all up the river. Never say the penny, damn, big spender. Now you in a jam and got a public defender. My little partner put his op on his shirt. Now he not coming home to February 31st. It's hard to really say who got it worse, cause they both went in the box, but one went in the dirt. Both they mama sick, and baby mama's hurt. I wonder which one of your friends will fuck your baby mama first. Only time will tell. Boy, these niggas telling like they part of YSL. Getting saved by the bell, I was raised by the scale. Break it down the cell. The way I broke the blocks, I could've made the NFL. My granddaddy used to move Yale, yeah, till he got hooked on the powder under his nails. Yeah, I know I said it before, but yet and still, if Jalen never pick up the sack, that means I failed. So I got work to do. You play with my money, you get the business, bitch, not take it personal. I don't give a shit who I offend. I just came to finish what I started, then I started making ends. I'm still running rapid in this lane that I'm in. It ain't a win till I turn my W's into M's. Clutching a staccato, shooting out the gym. If I'm not balling out, then I'm studying some film. The last thing I'm ever gonna need is more friends. So it's me versus you versus him and versus them. Yeah, fuck them all, yeah. real, fuck 'em raw. They thought they was fucking with me, and I'm appalled. Even when I piss, I got a pistol in my drawers. I'm prepared for the shit that's waiting outside of the stalls. Strapped like a jap because outside is a wall. If you late to the draw, they gonna outline you in chalk. Talking to the devil, he too broke to buy my soul from me. I've been a real nigga since I left my mama over rich. My daddy left before my second birthday, supposedly. 37 years later, now the nigga noticed me. My heart frozen solid, you don't know a nigga cold as me. If you gon' give me flowers, then make sure them shits is coca leaf. Couple words of wisdom there for anyone opposing me. You need holy water, a crucifix, and a rosary. This my real life, so none of it's been rehearsed. I come from selling product, none of it was merch. Nothing get discussed if the money isn't first. My baby needs shoes, a woman needs a purse. I say even once I'm dead, sneak my pistol in my hearse in case hell is where I'm headed after leaving hell on earth. Word to pill.
Hey, February 31st, Don Trip. Man, if y'all are not listening to this, man, please go do. Because y'all, I'm telling y'all, y'all not hearing the truth. I want to get into something, right? And I was only going to play. They got another story, and it was way shorter than the interview. But I wanted to play the interview because there was such a good back and forth between Royce and Tom, right? And Royce really, to me, this was really a great interview. I feel like because of the simple fact of you were hearing a side of a candidate that you normally don't hear, right? And really, Tom's interview pointed out a great fact, and especially with Matt Gaetz, that this goes on, but as well as that nobody wanted to bring up Lacey Johnson and how much millions were in credit card fees. So I want to play that interview between Royce White and Tom Hauser that happened yesterday, because it was, I guess people think it was oh, we got you, but it really wasn't. So I want to talk about that, and I want to get into this interview. So let's get into the Royce White and Tom Hauser interview.
Royce, the questions are actually pretty simple, just about campaign finance.
Okay.
It says that your total disbursements in the 24 campaign were $1.482 million. Okay. So just under 1.5. According to the itemized list of your expenses, a little more than 1 million went to credit card processing fees.
Yes.
Can you explain that?
Well, yeah, since the beginning of my time in politics, I've actually been very critical and outspoken about the way that money is raised in politics, especially regarding digital fundraising. What I didn't know when I first started politics was how a few companies or individuals or organizations are the bundlers of Republican voter data all across the country, and candidates are forced to either buy these bundled lists of emails up front at a pretty high cost, or they can do what you would call a rev share model, which is, in my opinion, and I've said a number of times on the record, completely a gyp for the average American voter. However, and why I say that is, some of these deals end up being 85-15%. So for example, if a Republican in Nebraska likes a Royce White in his message, he gets an email and it's Royce White, ultra MAGA candidate, and he donates $100. 85% of it is usually going to the guy who bundled that data. And so when I ran against Ilhan in 2022, I was unwilling to even participate in that. In 2024, somebody who was much wiser than I am about the whole process basically let me in on the strategy of using that format, using that mechanism, that process to get those voters and extract them from those bundlers. So effectively what we've been doing in the 2024 campaign, but now 2026, through good fundraisers like TAG, who also represent Mike Lee, Kerry Lake, and a bunch of other MAGA candidates, is we want to extract these Republican voters all across the country who in many cases think they're just donating their hard-earned dollars to their favorite candidates or people they support, but are really having a huge portion of that siphoned off by these third parties. Now, the good part about it is once they donate once, then they're on my house list, and when I go back to ask for their donation again, I usually get 90 to 95% of that donation. So we look at it as an extraction of good American supporters of the MAGA movement. And we want to continue to do that, and we have continued to do that, and our prospecting is going great. Actually, I think what you're saying here is a huge compliment of my ability and my viability as a candidate, because obviously people want to donate money to me.
But nearly 70% of your campaign disbursements
Yes.
went to credit card fees.
Well, that's how it happens in digital fundraising. The third party.
We've compared it to many other candidates who raised more money than you did,
Yes.
and had a much smaller percentage.
Well, that may be how they negotiated their deal. I'm not sure. The point of the matter is, when you look at the itemized list, the credit card fees are how all of these third-party bundlers take their portion of the money that's donated to the campaign through them.
Let's take you back to last October, October 24th, $260,766 in one day. On October 17th, $53,572. October
Tom, you're
18th,
saying the same thing.
123,000.
Tom, you're saying the same
That's
thing.
$500,000 in 8 days.
Tom, you're saying the same
in
thing.
8 days.
Tom, you're saying the same thing. When WinRed sends you money, and if you have big fundraising days for whatever reason, usually it'll happen for some type of, oddball story in the media, like Amy Klobuchar saying whatever she was during that campaign, and Republicans all across the country want to donate to you. They donate usually in big chunks. Not big chunks, but they donate to you at once in a big swarm. And then those people who bundled that money, those third-party people, are going to take their credit card processing fee or their portion right off of the top. Before when it hits WinRed, our fundraising platform, before it gets dispersed to me, it's dispersed to them. And like I told you, 85% of the money goes to them, and I've been critical of that from the beginning.
WinRed says they get 3 to 4%. If
Right.
somebody donates $100 to
Right.
you get 97, roughly,
Right.
maybe 96,
Right.
and they get $3. Yours almost has that flipped. You're giving them like 95 to 96%.
WinRed?
According to this is money you're giving to them.
Tom, you think this is like a gotcha moment. I'm telling you, I just explained it. Let me walk you through it again. This, first of all, I've been critical of it from the beginning. I've been in public, I've been at speeches, I've been on the stump, which I don't do stump speeches, but I've been on the stump. I've been on my podcast, I've been on other people's podcasts saying the way that Republican Party money and Republican candidates have to raise money is a scam.
Right.
Now, I don't think it's just a Republican scam. I think the Democrats do the exact same thing. But my point is, I'm against it. However, what I've come to the conclusion is, when major donors won't give you money because you're not a globalist scumbag candidate, you're forced to find a way to connect with the grassroots in these fundraising mediums, whether it be digital or mail or whatever the case may be, in order to get to the people who support ultra MAGA candidates, or let's say candidates who disrupt the status quo. These third parties are forcing candidates into deals where they're taking that data and information and they're doing 85-15 splits. So that's why the money that I raise compared to the cash on hand is always going to be lopsided, because they're taking 85% of the money donated.
Why does
And that's not uncommon, actually. That's the standard, actually. The reason I was so appalled when I first got into politics in 2022, and David was there with me. By the way, I brought a Ukrainian Jew because I'm so anti-Semitic. When I first set up WinRed and I started to talk to people about fundraising, I literally was in a shouting match with a third-party bundler, because to me, 85-15 seems like an affront to the American people. But I then found out that this is the standard. So I've been speaking out against it ever since.
But it is not the standard.
It is.
Tom
No, Tom,
Emmer,
you're
Pete
uninformed.
Stauber, Michelle
You're
Fischbach, Brad
misinformed.
Finstead. No, I'm
You
looking
are.
at
No, what you're
FEC
talking about are
campaign finance
listen,
reports.
what you're talking about, Tom, are 3 candidates who have been in politics for a number of cycles,
Right.
and they built up a house list. Not only that, not only do they have their house list from being involved so long, They also had the benefit of not being involved in politics at a time when digital fundraising was so prominent.
Right.
As well as all three candidates, I'm sure if you go back and look at their start, were initiated into politics through corporate verticals, big donors who already had their back, so they didn't have to give up those type of deals.
So you are
Tom Emmer was brought into politics by Vin Weber, Council of Foreign Relations. Okay, so that tells you who Tom Emmer is. So when Tom Emmer decided to run for governor or House or whatever he decided to do, he had the type of support that would allow for him not to need to do these type of handicap sort of deals with these third parties.
The Campaign Legal Center.
But do you understand that you use 3 congressional members that are some of the most tenured in the current Republican class? Of course their House list is different than mine. Of course their in-house fundraising email list is going to be different than mine, so they don't need to go to a third party. Tom Emmer can put out an email right now to his PACs, to his friends in Washington, to his friends internationally, I'm sure, to his own House list of people there in CD6 who think he's a great congressman. And he's going to get 90% of that money. So there are no credit card transaction fees with a third party. It's real simple, Tom.
Well, it may seem simple to you, but your case is virtually unprecedented.
No, it's not.
Across
you're lying,
the
Tom.
Campaign Legal Center out of Washington, D.C. filed a complaint against Matt Gaetz for a very similar situation where he spent $1.2 million on credit card fees, but he raised $6.5 million.
What came
so
from that?
3 or 4
what
times.
came of that complaint?
It is still in the process.
What
it takes
came of
about a year. It was just filed in November.
So has it been about a year since the campaign? The complaint was filed against me for the last campaign?
Yeah, and it takes about a year.
Okay, and where is that one now?
Well, it takes about a year. It hasn't been a year since it was filed.
It hasn't been a year on Matt Gaetz either, huh?
No.
Isn't it strange that both candidates you mentioned happen to be MAGA candidates? Do you find that odd?
No, because...
Yeah, no, the reason why it's not odd is because both Matt Gaetz and we actually have the same fundraiser. The reason it's not odd is because Matt Gaetz and I have chosen to take an approach to fundraising that virtually denies big donor and PAC money, and special interest and lobby money. And as a consequence, we are forced to do deals with third-party people and vendors or organizations who have bundled data on Republican voters. It's very simple.
So are you okay
We have to give a bigger cut.
Are you okay with donors knowing that when they donate money to your campaign, 70% of it is likely to go to a credit card processing fee?
Here's the deal. What I'm okay with donors knowing is this is the standard, whether you say it or not. This is the standard, at least the way it was communicated to me. And I have a bunch of friends who have run across the country in offices at every different level, and they all say the same thing, because I double and triple check with them before we signed the deal to do this fundraising. And they've done a great job, by the way. My donations are up to about 80,000, which means I'm viable. When they send a Republican in Kentucky an email about Royce White and his message, which is authentic and stays the same no matter what, they send me money. The point I'm making to you is, what I'm okay with donors knowing is, before I stepped into politics, this type of thing was already happening, and I'm doing a damn good job of extracting their name and their data and their phone number and their email from these people that would take 85% of the money. And so the second time they donate to me, I'll be getting 90%.
So you're spending money to send emails to Kentucky for a Minnesota Senate race.
Say it again?
You just said when I
People
send an
donate to
email,
U.S. Senate races from all across the country.
wouldn't the money be better spent in the state of Minnesota?
Wait a second, what are you saying?
To get votes. Wouldn't it be better to spend your money on the campaign in Minnesota?
First of all, the United States Senate is a nationwide, every United States Senate race is a nationwide race, because 100 United States senators vote on the policies that have ramifications for every American citizen in this country. Whether you live in Kentucky, Florida, Minnesota, or California, doesn't matter. I never said I was spending money to send emails to Kentucky. I'm in a rev share program with a digital fundraising company that does a fantastic job. Kerry Lake is probably the best amongst us at raising money for small dollar donations. But I'm in a rev share model with them where they send an email to somebody from Kentucky who very well likes my worldview and my message and my platform, which is America first. We're going to take our country back from these globalist scumbags like Donald Trump just did. And if they send $100, The first time, 85 of it may go to some third party. I have no clue who they are or where they are,
That
what
is
they
an
do.
incredibly high amount. Nobody, it seems to me, would agree
You're
to
lying.
that.
You're lying.
Well-
What do you mean they wouldn't agree? They send money to. First of all, even your premise is faulty. I mean, this is Tom. I like you. I tried to like you. Please unblock me on X. It's so childish. Listen, what you're saying is completely unfounded. And I think that you have a way better grasp on politics than this. But this is almost silly.
Royce, I've looked at
People
other
donate, Democrats
candidates.
and Republicans all across this country donate millions, yet billions of dollars to candidates, and they don't know how the money's getting chopped down. Look at Kamala Harris's campaign. She spent $1 billion. She spent $1 billion in a campaign, and when the campaign was over, they couldn't even pay the bills.
So all of this money you're talking
Am I lying?
about,
Am I tripping?
the 260,000 on
Yes.
October 24th, the 53
This
on
is
the
a
17th.
testament of Royce
all
White being able to raise money at a big scale, and they took big chunks of a split that I don't agree with.
And you are saying here today, all of that went to credit card fees. It was not spent on anything else.
You said that, I didn't.
No, I'm asking you a question.
No, you said it. You said it was spent on credit card processing fees.
Well, the description in your campaign finance report
Was
is
credit
right
card
there.
processing fees.
Credit card fees, credit card fees. This goes
Right.
on for pages after page.
That's how WinRed does it. Everybody knows that, Tom. You're behind the 8 ball on this, buddy. Maybe we're in a new digital era you're not familiar with.
There, okay, a crack about my age. I always enjoy that.
Yeah. I love you, boomers.
The word is commission. These companies take a commission for they go out and raise money, they take
Yes.
a commission.
Right.
After the first donation, Royce controls that list. The second time that same person donates, the campaign gets all
Wait,
the
not
money.
only do they take a commission, there's a group that takes a commission, but then there's also a bundler who leased our ability to access their list. They call it prospecting. Wait, are you familiar? Wait, before you go on, are you familiar with the term prospecting in digital fundraising?
I can imagine what it is.
No,
You're-
I'm asking you, are you familiar with
Okay,
it up
I haven't
until
heard
now?
the exact term,
Okay,
no. But
exactly.
I understand the concept
My
of
point to you is,
prospect.
if you really want to ask me how the process has worked, we could have done an interview about how digital processing, fundraising
Why are you
works.
the only
I
one
would've-
spending this kind of money?
I'm not, Tom. That's
You-
ridiculous.
can you find me-
I'm one of the only
can-
people who can raise that much money.
Can you find me other?
Tom.
Matt Gaetz raised much
Yes.
more than this.
Yes.
And spent as a percentage of
Gaetz-
campaign less than you did.
Matt Gaetz gets a much different split because he's Matt Gaetz.
Right.
I'm Royce White. I don't have the same platform or the same notoriety or the same visibility or the same ability to raise money that Matt Gaetz does. So Matt Gaetz went to his guys and he probably told them, listen, this is how much we're willing to give in terms of a split, a percentage. I wasn't able to negotiate that same price because I'm not Matt Gaetz. He's in the house.
But you are Royce White, and you could say, I'm not paying that.
Do you? And I have. I've said it a number of times. However, when you're going against Amy Klobuchar, who has USAID spending $50 billion
Right.
of United States taxpayer money to influence the media, to swing and persuade or create a consensus about her policies and worldview, or the Democrats in general, some of us grassroots candidates, some of us MAGA candidates, some of us candidates who just came from the Rondo community in St. Paul and aren't connected to all of these Vin Webers of the Council on Foreign Relations, some of us who just genuinely want to help this country have to do what we have to do to connect with the people who have been aggregated and bundled by organizations we are not familiar with.
Right.
That's the reality, Tom. So yes, you said they're credit card processing fees. I agree. That's exactly what they are. Are you trying to imply that maybe we spent $260,000 and we're saying something different?
I'm not implying anything. I'm asking the question. You spent more than $1
telling
million
you how it works.
on credit card processing
How much money
fees.
did we raise total?
About 1.6. You spent about 1.485. It's about 70% of what you spent was for credit card processing fees.
You keep saying credit card processing fees like it's an anomaly.
Because that's
This
what it
is
says
how-
on your report. I've looked at other
This
reports.
is how third party, oh, well, then there may be a problem with the way that they're reporting it or the language they're using in the report. But the reality is a third party is going to use a credit card system in order to take their portion of the money before it ever gets to me. And that's standard. Now, I don't know what they describe it as in their campaign finance reports or the memo.
The same as you do, credit card processing fees. But you just have a lot more of them than anyone
And you know
else.
why I have a lot more?
And a lot higher amounts.
You know why I have a lot more? Because I'm much better at raising money.
Every one of them has raised more money than you.
Who? Give me
Tom
example.
Emmer, Brad Fenstead,
You just
Michelle Fishbach,
You just used again.
Pete Stauber. These are the other
Congress members.
These are other members of
Tom,
the
you use
Republican
Congress members who
congressional
are
delegation.
stalwarts. Come on, give me a break. They're all in on it.
They're in on what?
They're
They
in
don't
on
have
what?
those high levels of commission because they have their own direct donors. This is a
Tom Emmer is the House. Wait a second. Tom Emmer has access to. Tom Emmer is the underling of Kevin McCarthy. He has access to what is.
Well, Kevin McCarthy's gone.
But give me a break. Is he gone? The money's still flowing around. Yes or no?
Mike Johnson is now the Speaker
Is the
of the
money
House.
still? Is the money that McCarthy accrued there in Washington D.C. the war chest? Is that money still circulating or not?
I'm sure it is.
I'm
I have
sure
no
it
idea.
is, Tom. You're right. Yeah, I'm sure it is, Tom. Don't give me the runaround. It doesn't work with me. You try this every time, and every time I smack you down. Intellectually, you don't get it yet. You people can't beat me. Listen. Listen to what I'm saying. Tom Emmer has access to what is probably, if not more, than $1 billion of political action committee money and other ways that money can get trickulated from the top down, from the top of the mountain down. So he doesn't have to have the same split or the same credit card processing fees or the same type of grassroots digital fundraising that I do. That's easy. That's not rocket science.
What did you get for $1 million in credit card fees?
For $1 million, we have over 70,000 donations. That's over 70,000 Republicans all across the country. Can I finish answering one question before you ask another one? Are you in a rush? You got somewhere to be? Because I got plenty of places to be.
You said you had to leave at 3:30.
But I'm still going to answer the question thoroughly because that's what the American people deserve. So can you let me answer it thoroughly?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. What we got for $1 million was, number one, we're connected to some of the best digital fundraisers in the country. Carrie Lake, Matt Gaetz, Mike Lee, all of these people do great jobs at small dollar donations. Number two, we got access to over 70,000 Republican donors all across the country that now have their name and information with the candidate that they can trust. Because when I go back to email them a second time and those credit card processing fees aren't a part of it, they can be damn sure that when I speak, not just if I get elected, but if I speak like to somebody such as you, that I'm going to represent the way that they view the world. And that's invaluable. They probably should donate more money. Because I would. Listen, if there was a candidate out there like me, and I was a middle American that was abandoned by you globalist scumbags, I would give them as much money as I could possibly afford. Honestly, I would.
Is Tom Emmer and Pete Stauber, are they among the globalist scumbags that you're talking about?
Yes, I think they are. Now, Pete Stauber, look, there's a pecking order. I think Tom Emmer's it runs Minnesota Republican politics.
Right.
I think he's at the top of the heap.
Yeah.
I don't like him. I think he's whatever way the wind is blowing, doing it for himself. And I think the three other Congress members underneath him, they kowtow to whatever he wants. They have their own individual status. So I'm not saying Stauber is Emmer or Fishbach is Emmer or Fenstead is Emmer, but I am saying that he runs things. And what I'm saying is not conjecture or conspiracy theory. Vin Weber gave Tom Emmer his start in politics. He was on the Council of Foreign Relations. It's the quintessential globalist organization. So it's no wonder that Tom Emmer has been on the record a number of times voting in favor for the policies that kicked the debt up, that got us in forever wars, that kowtowed and capitulated and let the Democrats open the border. He could say what he wants. Even if you look at the votes, it's not about that. Where did the money flow? And even now, here in Minnesota GOP politics, we find out that a communist scumbag like Michael Broadcorp, who threw in with Kamala Harris, was on the payroll of the Minnesota GOP. Have you done a story on that yet?
Right.
No.
I know you haven't. You wouldn't. My point, I'll help you here. This is your next
crazy.
lead. When you get done realizing that this is standard, follow up with Michael Broadcorp and how a commie ends up in the ledger of Minnesota GOP. When they tell us in the Minnesota Republican Party, don't badmouth other Republicans, don't say anything, about anybody who agrees with 80% of what you believe. Right. And all of a sudden, we find out there's somebody on the payroll bad-mouthing Minnesota Republican candidates. And not only that, it would appear that Bobby Benson, new chair in CD6, was on the executive committee that okayed Michael Broadcorp getting hired. Stop. Bobby Benson
we're
is
way
on
off topic.
No, we're not. We're on the exact same topic. We're talking about how money works in politics. And what you try to do is a hit piece on how my money is working, but my money is legitimate, just like it was from the campaign finance violation report last time. This is the real corruption. This is what Minnesotans need to know about. Stop. Bobby Benson is the chair of CD6. He's on Tom Emmer's payroll. He makes 160 grand working for Tom Emmer. And I confronted Tom Emmer this past weekend down at the CD6 convention, and I asked him, did you know about Michael Broadcourt being hired to slander Republican candidates by the Min GOP? And he stood right there in front of a crowd of CD6 constituents and said, no, I didn't. Okay, sure he didn't. You can't convince me.
Okay, my turn. So you're still saying that the strip club and limo expenses from the last
Stop.
campaign
You want to say
are
limo?
okay?
Do you think that's going to work?
No, you're
You're
just
losing all
said,
credibility.
You
When you
said,
say limo, you know you're losing credibility. Do you think a town car or a Chevy Tahoe is really a limousine?
You took it
Stop.
from- you took
Why
it
are
from-
you saying limo?
okay, you took a
Why
car
are you
service
saying limo?
from
That's
Tampa,
much different. Don't act like you don't know the difference in the words you're choosing.
From Tampa to Atlanta.
Don't act like is that a far ride? It's about 5 hours.
That is a lengthy ride.
No, it's
when
not.
when
Not
it's
to me.
essentially an Uber.
To you globalist scumbags who take private flights everywhere and charter jets. That seems like a long drive.
Final thing.
Tom Emmer charters a jet. Tom Emmer takes a private flight. That's probably why he needs so many millions of dollars, because he has to charter a private jet to go run to DC.
Final thing
Tom,
on
wait
topic.
a second. No, not a final thing. Why are you choosing limo instead of car service and acting like anybody logical who's watching doesn't know that you tried to use limo as a way to infer that I'm doing some exorbitant spending?
Okay, how about strip club?
Okay, we already discussed that.
Okay, well,
We already discussed that. We discussed it already. $1,200 was accidentally spent at the strip club on a food tab, and a card that was used happened to be my campaign card, not from me, it was somebody who worked for the campaign, and we reimbursed that charge, if that's what you want to call it. I took my own personal cash. Matter of fact, I took my own personal cash and paid that back to the campaign, which by all standards of the FEC is completely legitimate. If you're out on the campaign trail and you spend campaign money on something personal, it's never acted upon if you reimburse it. We reimbursed it, and it was $1,200. It certainly wasn't $50 billion. Have you done a story on $50 billion being spent by USAID?
Have you filed an amended
How
FEC
do you interview
report?
me and not know that?
Have you filed an amended report? Last time I looked, it hadn't been amended.
How do you interview me and not know that?
Well, I was planning on talking about this year's campaign finance report, but the last time I checked the 22 one, it still had not been amended.
How do you interview me, Tom, and not know that we filed an amendment?
We
filed an amendment.
One more question about this year's
we filed
campaign.
an amendment, Tom, to answer your question.
I'll take a look.
Please.
So you're going to
Let's
tell
do a
your
follow-up
donors,
interview, 30 minutes. I'll give you another
You're going to tell
hour.
your donors that it's money well spent to spend over $1 million to raise 1.6 million.
Damn.
That's essentially what you did. You've spent what your report says, over $1 million in credit card fees that you say is how you raise money, and you raised 1.6, and you spent $1 million to raise 1.6. Is that a good value for donors?
I don't agree with how you're framing it. I told you that before. But what I'll say to the donors is exactly what I said before. Their name and their email and their phone numbers have been aggregated on lists of third-party bundlers and PACs all across this country. People who, in my opinion, probably don't represent their best.
Hold on, because I want to stop it for a minute, right? Because I want to show you something. If anybody remembers the congressional race and 2020 with Lacey Johnson versus Ilhan Omar, in that year, he raised a lot of money, right? That was a big race, but it was $12.1 million, and he had spent over $4 million mysteriously on credit card fees. Now, why are we talking about a Royce White who it was only a couple million? No, it was just $1 million. But we're not talking about a Lacey Johnson. We're not talking about somebody that was, because the crazy thing of it is, before he ran that year and raised all that money, that district only raised, and for GOP, only raised $23,000. So people got to think about it. You have to go through this, and that's why I was kind of like weird, because I was like, wait, why are they going at Royce like that? I mean, I get it. I don't know what kind of deal he had or whatever, but I'm sure if you really look at it, that's a crazy ass deal that these companies be making, and nobody really points it out. And we need to start pointing it out, because prospecting, it's been an issue for a long time, and it's entirely legal, just like kickbacks, right? Federally, we have laws against kickbacks, but statewide, we don't. We don't have any direct laws, just like with fentanyl, just like with, other things. Like kickbacks are not saying that it's right, but it's in Minnesota, it's legal, it's ethically wrong, but we can't get other politicians to look at it as ethically wrong. They want to see it as it should, we got to prove it criminally. And no, what do you mean? That's like, it's always and I don't understand that, why they brought it up with Royce. And then I get it. He did confront Tom Emmer. He is going at some of the biggest Republicans in Minnesota. So what is a better way to use legacy media to demonize you? I mean, it makes it seem like, and that's the one crazy part, right? And I will say is that if you look at the bigger picture here, it makes it seem like it goes at Black candidates. I'm going to say that because a man is bringing up Tom Emmer, some of the biggest Republicans, and posting about, talking about Michael Broadcap, his contract that he signed with the Republicans, and was going at Republican candidates. That's crazy. Like, when are we honestly going to do better and look at it and say, listen, just because fraud and waste is out here, we should have been calling it out before. Because it's the crazy thing of it is, it's just like we're feeding our future, right? And I respect American Experiment and Bill Glenn and all that, because this is the crazy thing of it is, right? And I want to say this to Tom Hauser, is how are you reporting about something, but you're not reporting about all this mysterious credit card fees when it came to Lacey Johnson? Is it because he's tied to Tom Emmer and them? I mean, I want to be for real. And this is why I dislike Minneapolis politics, especially when it comes to these districts or that area, is because it's like there's so much fraud and waste. And then people don't really care unless it's certain people. They don't care, because I will tell you like this. How did a district in 2018 only had $23,000 raised for her entire campaign, and Lacey spent more money on that for a commercial? Like, we gotta do better, man. And it's the one thing that frustrates me about Minneapolis politics, and especially Minnesota, right? It's like, we'll look at things differently because, oh, you're a Republican and you're a Democrat. What happened to it being wrong is wrong and right is right? Like, right doesn't care what color you are. Neither does wrong. And I don't understand it, because there are so many people out here that wear a pulpit, that say that preach at a pulpit, that say they are manly and next godly, but yet do the things that we see. How is that? Because I'll tell you right now, we have such a fucked up view of what is right and what is wrong. That's one thing we can't agree on. We are so divided on it. There used to be, I think, a thin line, and now there isn't anymore. And I started to understand that last night, and I'm going to get into that more. It is April Fool's Day. What I'm about to talk about is not April Fool's. It's not a fucking joke, because we do live in this shit. We do live in this. And then, like Robert said, I'm glad that Royce came out, and in my eyes, he was the right person that they were going to do this, right? Because then he was going to throw out the big hitters under the bus, right? And again, with that, along with people's data, is how they smurf small dollar donations to their favorite candidates. When red is the act blue of the GOP. All right. And that's why, honestly, I look at a lot of these candidates and I'm like, what's really changed? They want to do the same things over and over again, because it's not about, and I will say this, right? And my view of Royce is kind of different than a lot of people's, because I remember being out there after George Floyd and you know, the Black August or the walk to the Federal Reserve or, you know, various other things. And I was a big supporter of 10K and Jonathan Mason, you know, so when all this shit came out, I was like, damn, wait, why are they going at Royce so hard? You know, because they don't be going at nobody else. They don't go at people that, to be honest, they want to talk about Justin Eichhorn. Let's talk about Minnesota's Jeffrey Epstein, where nobody gave the money back. Barely anybody. You had a millionaire. I don't even know if dude was a billionaire because I don't think he was, but he was very rich. And it's like, as long as they got money, y'all people are willing to play. And it's like, no, wrong is wrong. It doesn't matter. Because that's what I'm starting to see. People get pissed off when they get fired. Then they want to be whistleblowers. I don't even take that at value anymore. Why don't? Because when you're not getting paid and coming out and telling the truth, come on, man. So because you get cut off, then you want to start telling the truth. I don't understand that. That's wild to me. And people will still see it as that's what it is. And no, I don't believe that. So I want to get back into, we got about 6 minutes left of Royce.
Interest and certainly don't care about the value of their citizenship. I do. The only way for us to reasonably extract that information from these third-party bundlers and these organizations and PACs is to do deals to get that information. To me, it's a small price to pay. It actually is. If you, listen, if I'm a Republican Party voter and I want to donate money, and by some strange coincidence, my information has fallen into the hands of these organizations, and I don't know it, which is usually the case.
Right.
Because a lot of these people didn't sign up to be on these email lists yet.
Right.
When they see information and a message that they can resonate with, they're compelled to donate, like a Royce White, who's ultra MAGA. But if I was one of them, and my information was with all of these different organizations that I didn't realize, I would love for a candidate like me to come along and say, you know what, there's a problem with this, and I'm going to come get your information from them by doing a deal. And if it's $15.85 the first time you send, that's a small price to pay rather than you continuously getting scammed by them ongoing for the rest of your life. Wait, do you agree that it's a better deal for them to send $100 and give $85 to these third-party donors, and then they're on my list, and now when they go to donate to me, it's actually going to me and the views they believe, versus for the next 20 years them being on that list and giving that amount of money?
Well, so far there's very little evidence that a lot of that money is going to you.
Yeah. Tom, give me a break. No.
Well, I'm looking at your campaign finance report.
Tom, stop. We got involved with this digital fundraising team at the tail end of the Klobuchar race for that very reason, because I don't agree with how it's done. Stop, listen.
No, it wasn't the tail end.
Yes,
it goes all the way back to September. That's not the tail end.
That's the last 3 months of the election. September, October, November. That's the tail. Wait.
The three most important months of a campaign.
But you said it wasn't the tail end, Tom.
Well, tail end would be the last couple of weeks.
In what world?
Not the last few months.
In what world? Every U.S. Senate race is started a year in advance.
On December 27th.
Stop, wait, are you denying that U.S. Senate races start their campaign fundraising years to at least, maybe sometimes 2-3 years in advance?
Right.
Nope, that's true, but yours didn't.
Right. Consequently, why we didn't start fundraising with this group until the tail end.
On December 27th, 7 weeks after the campaign was over.
Are you denying that's the tail end? By the description I just gave you?
We can disagree on what constitutes the tail end. On December 27th, 7 weeks after the campaign was over, after Election Day, you spent nearly $3,000 on a rental car in Missouri. What campaign expense is that?
Say it again.
December 27th of 24, you spent $2,825 on Enterprise Rent-A-Car in the state of Missouri, and another $3,381 with Enterprise for, I don't know what, gas maybe? What campaign expense is there 7 weeks after the campaign?
First of all, I'm not even familiar with the charge off the top of my head.
It's in
I'm not familiar
report.
with it off the top of my head, but I know we rented a lot of vehicles in order to drive, our campaign trailers around that had my sign on them. And we may have owed them money that we didn't pay. We may have wrote them a check. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not the treasurer, but I can say when Enterprise Rental Car doesn't have a car or certain types of vehicles available, like let's say a pickup truck with a hitch that could pull a trailer, then we may look to outer or surrounding states in order to find that vehicle. Because to us, it is necessary to have that type of vehicle in order to pull that type of campaign material. And our trailers were a hit. We had, we got so much good feedback about our trailers. They were novel, they were innovative. They were something that a lot of campaigns and candidates don't do. So I'm not familiar with the specific charge, but if we rented a car, we probably rented a car related to campaign.
So I'll give you the final word here. The money spent on the credit card fees, and then there was also consulting fees to A-Team Digital and WinRed that also totaled hundreds of thousands of dollars. All of that.
If it went through WinRed, you know what it was for. I mean, I don't even understand what you're saying.
What about A-Team Digital? There were hundreds of thousands of dollars to them as well. How is that different? A-Team. A-Team Digital.
A-Team Digital, WinRed, if it went through WinRed and it was credit card processing, it's self-explanatory in our world. We know it. I mean, that's why, I don't know why you think this is like a huge lead. But you haven't done any story on Michael Brockcore being on the Min GOP payroll. I mean, it's just ludicrous to me.
Well,
this is not even a story. I just love the opportunity to come in here and talk to you. And I know you're kind of pissed off still about me giving you and your news director a lot of fresh flack about your BS claims of anti-Semitism and the way you try to frame that in the last interview. So I know this was like a gotcha moment, but it's not gonna, this ain't it. I'm just helping you. This ain't it. Credit card processing fees are standard in the industry, especially with digital fundraising. The deals are always 85-15, 70-30. Some people may have 50-50s. I'd like to see those candidates because I really would. I'd like to know how they got that deal because I'm gonna renegotiate mine. But ultimately, all the people who donate money to me know that I stand against the globalist agenda, full-throated, full 10 toes down, and there's not an ounce of sellout in me, and that's why they donate money to me, because they see me as somebody who has integrity, and I stand on the things that I say. If we have to rent a car from Juneau, Alaska, to oppose the Tom Emmers, we'll go to Juneau, Alaska. Right. If I got to go to Guadalajara, if I got to cross the border that they left open, to find a rental car to haul my America First trailer around, that's exactly what we'll do.
So there's nothing to see here. Is that your bottom line here?
Keep following up on the story. But don't forget Michael Brockcore.
I will do that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Liberty Mutual is all she talks about since we saved hundreds.
Wow. To me, to be honest, there isn't anything to see. They make something out of nothing. Instead of being it. Because I want to talk about yesterday, right? And that's the whole thing to me is like, this leads into both, right? Yesterday and what happened to Royce, right? Because once the person's name came out, there was a display at the state capitol. It was a display about the 10 Commandments, about the satanic one, right? It was not about trans, because yesterday was Trans Day of Visibility, but that's not what, I'm not here to stick up for Matt. I'm not here to defend him. I'm not here to say it was all good or whatever, but I'm telling you that you're talking to somebody that is remorseful about the situation that happened. And probably wouldn't have did it if he knew that it wasn't about anything to do with trans visibility. It was to do about Easter. So I do want to get into, the things that were left there. I don't agree with. I definitely don't agree with. You know what I'm saying? I've came into a different part of this whole movement shit. So I'll be the first to say it. I don't agree with it. Don't agree with it, because I'm one of them people that, even though, yes, we should separate church and state, and there's a lot of representatives that honestly don't, they want to bring God into it, or they want to bring their, if they're Muslim, if they're, all that. And my thing of it is that we're a country that is a melting pot of all different sorts of things. Right? We're all different sorts of races. We're all different sorts of personalities, who we are as individuals. So let's leave it at that, and let's make the policies about people. Let's make the policies about that will affect people's lives. Because this whole thing about,
that we're seeing right now play out, we're in scary times, and I don't think people honestly fully get where we're at. So I will say that let's go to Spring Valley, Fillmore County. A lot of people maybe do or don't know about the Peterson twins. She was sentenced yesterday, and I want to play that. And she was only sentenced to 90 days in jail for her role in a fatal Fillmore County buggy crash.
Tragic story involving a car crashing into an Amish buggy and killing 2 children has now come to a close.
Yeah, this woman, Sarah Beth Peterson, originally told police she had been driving that car that day. But as that investigation continued, Sarah admitted she lied and switched places with her twin sister, Samantha Peterson. Tonight, a judge handed Sarah her sentence, just 90 days in jail and 120 days of house arrest.
ABC 6 News reporter Chandler Jackson joins us live now from outside the county courthouse. And Chandler, we understand the parents of those 2 children were there in court today. What did they have to say?
Yeah, Robin, Maisie, it was a message of faith and acceptance, but not necessarily one of forgiveness, as the family asked the judge to remember the price that has been paid for Sarah Peterson's actions. The Miller statement was read by an advocate of the court, unrecorded, per the wishes of the family. In it, the parents of Irma and Wilma Miller leaned heavily on their faith, saying God always has a plan, and that to move on, we have to accept what happened to our daughters. However, the message also held words that showed the extent of the consequences of the Peterson twins' actions, which the Millers are still dealing with today. A younger son, terrified of getting back in a buggy.
He's bearing those scars not only physically but emotionally for the rest of his life.
An older daughter, blaming herself for what happened.
She was age 13. She was the one that was driving it. Feels responsible for her siblings. She was the one that's driving. She was the one that was responsible.
Sarah Peterson also spoke to the court.
I'd also like to apologize to Fillmore County Sheriff's Department and law enforcement for my deceitful behavior. I know they were just trying to give the family answers, and I hindered the investigation and made it worse than it already was.
And to the Millers directly.
While I understand that my apology cannot ease your grief, I hope that it conveys the deep regret that I feel. I will carry the responsibility of my actions for the rest of my life, and I wish with all my heart that I could undo the loss and grief that you have experienced.
In the end, the judge leaving Sarah Peterson with one final thought.
I mean, you continue to choose to make that immoral and illegal decision. But at some point, this has to end.
Right.
Sarah Peterson will now spend at least 60 days in jail, followed by the house arrest and up to 4 years of probation, all with an almost 3-year prison sentence hanging over her head the entire time. Her sister, Samantha Peterson, is set to appear in court again in June. In Preston, Chandler Jackson, ABC 6 News.
Yeah, and Chandler, you just mentioned Samantha Peterson's court dates coming up this summer. Is there any inclination that Sarah, her twin sister, will be testifying in her trial if that does come to a trial?
I spoke to Sarah's defense attorney, Dan McIntosh, about this following the hearing today. He said that as long as she is subpoenaed for the upcoming trial, if that takes place, she is prepared to testify truthfully and honestly as the law requires.
So maybe the family will get some more answers, but that's crazy. Only 90 days in jail when you have people that are innocent behind bars and didn't do anything, and we can't get them no justice. And they actually affected people's lives in only 90 days in jail and 30 days house arrest. That's not justice. That's not accountability. Because it does make me say, put her in a different area and their results would probably be different. First of all, put a different race. If she was a black girl, it wouldn't be no 90 days in jail. But I see that, counties like Fillmore or, Olmsted, they don't really care, even with like Goodhue County, because, this the one crazy part, and I'll say it again, is like, even when it comes to the young man that died in Red Wing Correctional Facility, we got people dying. Did he deserve to be killed? I won't say that he was killed, but does he deserve to die? Where, people are treated less than human and especially in inhumane conditions? Because I don't agree with that. I don't. I'll be the first to say it. I don't agree with that, and I do think it's crazy. Yeah, and this is America. This is what the land that we live in, and I believe that if we started calling out the wrongs that are done in our communities, I do think we'll start seeing more accountability because people won't do the bullshit anymore. It's just like what I said about Royce. It's crazy that all these people protested against Amy Klobuchar, but how many voted that were protesting Amy Klobuchar? How many voted? For the same woman that was a problem for locking up Marvin Haynes, you're seeing the story on First 48 when it comes with Edgar, Mike Freeman, all these detectives, Gator, Zimmerman. I was just talking about a story from 1988 yesterday where two off-duty police officers, Elisa Clemens, who runs a Mother's Loves initiative, and Stacy Neubauer, killed a black man. Nobody talks about that, and she works with. That's how you're going to affect this, Mark. How you going to heal the community when you've harmed the community and there's been no accountability and no justice, because anything that you touch over there is going to turn to shit. And that's why that shootout happened on 36th and Penn. Because I'll tell you like this: when motherfuckers think that they do good and they're not, God has a way of biting you in the ass. Because you can't sit here and be a false prophet. And I don't mean no profit. I mean Profit. I mean a bag. Because you look at, that's the one crazy part. And I will say this. This is why a lot of us don't get no justice and no accountability. And I feel bad for a lot of families, especially impacted. I feel bad for Jermaine Ferguson. I feel bad for Cornelius Jackson's family. I feel bad for Timothy Magruder, Philip Vance, because there's a lot of individuals, and I was going off the top, so maybe I missed a few names, but it's crazy of how we're out here and we see people that are fighting for rights to free the innocent, and they're out here celebrating. Well, we're not getting no justice. That's the one, because I hope people that are watching and they're seeing what's going on in our prison system, and then they see what's going on in Chicago's, because we got the same unit that Illinois has called this Conviction Review Unit. Well, they didn't free the 19 people that were just freed because they were freed because there was no evidence. The Conviction Review Unit didn't think they should have been freed, or it should have even been opened up the case. So I don't want us to put all of our eggs in that CRU basket or that Keith Ellison basket, because he doesn't even talk about Timothy Magruder, or he doesn't even talk about Philip Vance. He doesn't talk about his involvement in the Jerry Hoff case. So I don't get why we even talk to some of these people, or we even uplift them as black community leaders when they've done so much black harm inside of our black streets. I'm going to be 100. And that's why you don't see the churches the way that they used to. I'm going to be straight up. Lincoln Caldwell. That's another one. There's so many individuals that have been wrongfully convicted and are behind bars. And there's some people out here, because I know prison politics, if these walls could talk, she goes live every day almost. Even though there's sometimes probably not many people there, she doesn't care, because she wants people to get the message. She wants people to see that listen, we've got a problem, Minnesota. We've got a problem. And people honestly don't care if it's not at your front door. If it doesn't affect them, they don't care. And that's why we see mothers like Katie Wright. There's other mothers like Jaheim McMillan's mom. I know everybody's seen Mateen McMillan's post about activists down in Southern America. I mean, not South America, Southern USA. And how it's the same thing up here. They pray. And then when people come out, Well, we don't believe them. We don't believe them. So while y'all were out here having people twerking, y'all were out here having predators prey on the young. And nobody was being, yeah, that's the one thing that I never understood, man. Is like when it came to a certain part, especially inside of the activist community, we were not really about accountability or responsibility because it was so easy to blame others for their issues. It didn't matter. Oh, I was beat up when I was a kid, so no, man, we get that, go to therapy, talk that shit out. You know, this my thing of it is like, and I'll say this to anybody if you're an activist in Minnesota, we shouldn't be out here causing harm or trauma to families that have already been through enough. So I don't understand why a pastor's daughter is challenging, families of impacted families to fights in front of a church. And it's the crazy thing is that there's so many in our community that are like, oh yeah, go ahead. But then you don't understand, like, wait, so it's okay for you to sit here and boost up a pastor in bad behavior and talking about he want to fight and need all this blah blah blah, and nobody says nothing. And it makes me sad. It does, because there's so many families out here that their names have been brought up, or their situations, and there's nothing. Just like with Thomas Jennings in 1988. Who's can't remember his name, Jamar Clark. $200,000 wasn't enough. I will say that. Look at all the wrong that Minneapolis and Hennepin County has done to a certain part of a community. You know, I talk to my mom a lot. And what people don't understand is, like, she talked about this yesterday, is they always talk about wanting to change the system. But you haven't changed the wrongs that were done in the past. So how are you trying to change something now? And I don't get that. And there were so many Black families in Minneapolis that, just like what my mom said, she went to, and I know they're not open anymore, but this is one thing that, kind of my mom talks about occasionally, is I was at St. Joseph's Children's Home. And so let me get back up, rewind a little bit. So that was one of the stipulations to me not becoming an adult, being adjudicated, because there was a unit down at the Juvenile Detention Center that if you were a juvenile waiting to be charged or go to, adult court, that's where they kept you. So that's where I was at for most of the time. Now, there was a couple of things that they try to say I was like mentally ill or whatever. It's whatever. So I went to St. Joseph's because I don't know what their intentions were or whatever, but this is one of the things that was done, is they put a paper in front of my mom, and it took away because she didn't read it, and that's what happened a lot in the older generations. And if this is the thing of it is, I don't care if you're Mary Mortery, I don't care if you're Deanna Witt. Here's the thing of it is, if I'm telling a lie, even Deanna Winter, unseal the records. Unseal the records. Because that's the crazy thing. It will tell you in my records who my targets were when I shot up that park that day. So I don't have anything more to say, because the crazy part of it is, I know I can say it all day, that Pastor Jerry McAfee and Sharif Willis were my targets. And I hit a girl at a park. But see, you can't prove shit. I can prove this. The crazy thing of it is, because I will say this, over the weekend, I found out that there was just rumors that, I shouldn't even say that it was a rumor, but it was speculation that, well, I shouldn't even say it's fucking speculation either, because it was the truth. People didn't know where the paperwork was. So, keep on talking about certain situations enough, it comes knocking, that opportunity comes knocking. So it came to us that Lisa did kill, but she was off duty. Thomas Jennings, that's something that is, we're lying. That didn't happen. Well, and you know, that's the one crazy part. And I will say this all the time is like when the truth comes out, they like to block people. They like the truth from happening. And then this the one crazy part of it is you got people inside the community that because they don't know what's happening, because you have a lot of people that have moved from out of state and don't care. You know what I'm saying? That's why we really don't, all our historical markers are gone, are starting to be gone, because they don't remember that. They weren't here during the 80s. They weren't here when, so this the crazy thing is people talk about, oh, Big U. Does anybody remember when Big U was here? When he was running the streets of Minneapolis and St. Paul? Do people even want to understand why we have rolling 60s Crips in St. Paul, Minneapolis? It's because of Big U. It's because of the niggas that came out here from LA, Detroit. You got the Detroit boys. You had people from Chicago, New York. What people don't want to talk about is Minnesota was a hub for a lot. Organized crime, gang. You know, the crazy thing of it is people were trying to set up. They were getting involved with government. That's how they were able to build the airport up north. Casey Ramirez. You know what I'm saying? And then well, we didn't know. Where do you think somebody was getting? I'm not saying be racist and be like, oh, well, he's a Latino, he's a drug dealer, he's with the cartel. Let's be honest with ourselves. It's like, hey, we're a hub. 94 goes a lot of directions. So does 35. You know, I remember when I was in the game and I went to Omaha, Nebraska, one of the I should say the biggest city in Nebraska. And how wild it was. And you know, that's the crazy thing is because I remember when Belly came out with DMX and Nas and, you know, they did that little drug dealer movie about, you know, one of the cities was Omaha. And I'm like, if people only understood, it's like, damn, Omaha is like the wild, wild west. You got 1 million people all tucked into a community that really is nothing there. And then you look into the black neighborhoods and it's so ran down, just the same way with Gary, Indiana. You know what I'm saying? It's people just, I don't understand it. I really don't. But I do believe that we could change. We can make a change together. We can make a change together. We can make a change together. Oh, yes, right. I'm sorry, I didn't go to, I've been reading the comments. But yeah, people care more about grants than they do problems. Prison politics, if these can talk, been running for 4 years without government grants. We want the same thing. You know, I'm not an impacted family or anything like that. But I will say this is the video on Facebook that Darnella Frazier videotaped that and went live with George Floyd has made me get off the couch. It made me didn't want to be. Here's the thing. I said when I got out of Stillwater in 2012, I never wanted to go back. Them little last 6 months, because I remember Mayan was in there. We were all in the same unit. Mayan, Marvin, my brother and Philip Vance were right next door. Oh, what the hell? Of course, I started. On with the internet. No, there it goes. So yeah, I mean, and it's crazy because people do care more about grants than they care about actually fixing the problem in our communities. Because I'll be honest, is that especially for somebody that was on 36th and Penn during the times of the Davion, Anaya, you know, Trinity, London Bean. I will never forget because to me, that area now is so depleted. It is so, it's not the same 36 and Penn that I remember, because, you know, I remember when we went to that area and it was all the teddy bears. It was, you know, I'm not saying it was the best, but it was an area that people could be together. You know what I'm saying? We tried to do whatever we could. It didn't matter if it came to bouncy houses. It didn't matter if it came to doing barbecues, because I remember that year, that July 4th, Marcus wanted to do something really big on July 4th. So we did something that was huge. We did a neighborhood wars. Probably wasn't the best, but that's what we did. We called some of the Mexican homies and was like, hey, we want to light it up. I mean, there was over like $5,000 that was spent just for the July 4th fireworks. You know what I'm saying? And people don't understand, it's like a lot of money was spent. And what's crazy is what people don't want to talk about was drug money was spent. Drug money was, I'll talk about it now, because mine came from weed. I shouldn't say drug money. I'll say weed money. Fuck you talking about. But when George Floyd happened, I was a nigga with over 20 grand sitting in the bank account. 20 grand sitting in the bank account. Crazy, man. And these people out here doing the things that we were doing, and they want to call us the problem, when the profits that when we were the problem, we're trying to correct that problem. We're calling out the same people who say y'all are trying to fix it, and you're not. You're making it worse. Because I will tell you like this, there are so many people in North Minneapolis that look for I'll just call it a handout from either black churches, these nonprofit organizations, because people look at Royce White, and I'm glad that Tom Hauser did this interview with Royce, because it just showed that we have flaws in our system, and they don't care because it allows them to prosper. It allows them to prosper. Look at that Best Harvest Academy or Seeds Academy with Eric Mahmoud. Look at, you know, that's the one crazy. Look at these violence interrupters. All this with Sasha Cotton. You know, there was sexual relationships going on. You look at VJ Smith. You look at Mad Dads and all the drill team stuff that was going on, and it was crazy. Then you look at, you know, this is the one crazy thing, because as I've gone over Ron Edwards, a lot of people don't remember Ron. He passed away in January of 2020. But if you look, he did a big write-up, and especially in Johnny Northside, it was a blog. They went in deep into what replaced Sumner projects. It was called the Home and Heritage Park. And if you go through that project, there was a lot of money that went missing, and that they never got any answers to. You know, they never got any answers. You know, the same thing when it came to the drill team and little boys and girls. It's the same thing nowadays. The same thing with City Inc. or The Way, or while we had a CSI investigation. But nobody wants to have those talks. And yet we have confidential informants around here talking about their pastors that have incarcerated innocent young men, that were innocent young men, are now, I should have said innocent young boys, who are now innocent men. And we do nothing. Some people do a lot. I will say it, they do a lot. And there's others that, well, it's not my family. But what about, why don't you want to do something before that? Why don't you want to do something before it touches your family? You know what I'm saying? Because that's all it takes. It takes a split second. A split second. And they don't, the crazy thing is they don't care. If it's not their kids, they don't care. And that's what's wild to me, is like, we have to get past that, because even what I'm about to play next, right? We're talking about, you know, fentanyl and all this change when it comes into our community, right? What have we seen with fentanyl? It's touched a certain population, but it hasn't really touched the right population. And when it does, I do believe that we will get change when it comes to certain reforms, when it comes to fentanyl, because it should be seen as a weapon of mass destruction because that's all it takes is a little bit. It's a smell of fentanyl and you're dead. So with that being said, no matter if we did, that's why you look at overdoses, they've upticked because they've stopped playing around. People think, oh, you can't smoke fentanyl. Where'd you learn that? Where'd you learn that? Because you believe that this is the same fentanyl that is in hospitals. They're not telling you that this is illicit fentanyl and is more powerful than hospital fentanyl because it's a synthetic. It's not real. So with that being said, here goes a story about fentanyl.
Fueled by fentanyl has gripped our country for years.
It is not just hurting adults, young kids are victims too. Preliminary data from last year shows 20 kids in Minnesota were exposed to opioids, including fentanyl, and overdosed, but they did survive. A local prosecutor says there aren't enough legal protections in place to make sure the kids are safe. Caroline Cummings takes us to Aiken, where a recent case is fueling a push for change at the state capitol.
In the quaint town of Aiken, County Attorney Sebastian Meza sets boundaries, keeping his work, not personal.
I think maybe what I find most rewarding about it is the finality. When I'm done with a case, I'm done with it.
But one case from nearly 2 years ago, he just can't shake.
I try to separate how I feel from my job. But it was something that kind of shocked the conscience.
In July 2023, first responders answered a call about a 2-year-old experiencing an overdose. The child saved by Narcan after 3 doses of it. Later, authorities executed a search warrant at the home. What the Aiken County Sheriff's Office and investigators found, a crib with another 2-year-old in it, very close to a plate of crushed fentanyl, with a ceiling fan flying above. Other kids were there too.
Fentanyl particles being blown into the air where these children are sleeping. It was just like stunning, really.
When Meza went to make his charging decisions, he says he came across a gap in part of the law, which says, quote, no person may knowingly cause or permit a child or vulnerable adult to inhale, be exposed to, have contact with, or ingest methamphetamine, a felony level offense, but fentanyl doesn't apply.
I was able to charge them with a gross misdemeanor, just general child neglect, but I didn't think that was appropriate to the situation or what those kids were facing, the reality of the danger that they were exposed to.
Senator Upke can come on forward for Senate File 456.
At the Capitol this year, a bipartisan bill that would change that, a proposal that Meza himself put on lawmakers' radar.
The county attorneys are just asking for this tool in their toolbox to be able to prosecute the people in the proper manner.
This wouldn't be the first time the legislature updated the law to reflect the reality of the fentanyl crisis. 2 years ago, lawmakers changed the statute for sale and possession of fentanyl to bring it in line with heroin, which until that change had stiffer penalties, even though illicit fentanyl is more potent.
A recent study published in the American Journal of Drug and Alcohol Abuse shows an over 1,000% increase in fentanyl poisonings in children up to age 19 from 2015 to 2023. Meza says changing the law in this way will mean more people who expose children to this dangerous drug will face consequences that match the crime.
It just makes sense to hold people accountable for putting a child in danger that way.
In St. Paul, Caroline Cummings, WCCO News.
The proposal is eligible to be part of a larger public safety package at the end of session. There are versions in both the House and
We should have been taking fentanyl serious, and a lot of communities weren't, right? Because why does it take a headline story for politicians to get out their backsides? Maybe is it because they're too busy debating nonsense instead of handling the real issues, killing people every day? Cartels don't care about laws. Dealers don't care about laws. So what's the game plan? If Minnesota wants to get serious, it's time for real consequences. Enough with the performative outrage. People are dying. And that's what's crazy is like there's a lot of people that are dying from fentanyl, and we're not having the real answers. We're not giving out the real as I will tell you like this, I remember when fentanyl became a big old thing right when COVID, right? You know, you had kids using left and right, and it was like, fuck, I don't know what to do anymore, you know, because at the end of the day, it's like these people are going crazy. It's, man, I just don't really know what to say anymore. To be honest, when it comes down to a lot of it is misinformation about certain drugs. And we need to be honest, we need to really start telling it hurts individuals. It makes people, and especially when we lie. So I want to talk about also what's going on in Rochester, Minnesota. Last night, there was an explosion into a house. You guys might not have heard about it if you're not living in Rochester, but it was chaotic scene last night. So I want to show this video. So that's crazy as hell. Because that's one house. That's the one video, I should say. And there was another one, I think it might have. Oh no, here it is. So it did get pretty. On a cul-de-sac. Yeah, so a lady did die, and that is crazy. So a lady did die, but the crazy thing of it was like last night, the same time that was happening, an individual pulled up and was shot. Rochester did have gunshots last night, so around the same time that, you know, around the fire that was going on. So a man with gunshots was found shortly after reports of gunfire came in on Monday night, according to Rochester Police Department. RPD says dispatch received multiple reports of gunshots in the area of 56th Street Northwest and 55th Avenue Northwest around 11:15 on Monday night. Not long after the man was found with non-life-threatening gunshot wounds at a gas station on 55th and Bandale Road. I think a lot of us knows what gas station that is. They just don't want to come out and say it. So NBC or ABC6 News will have more details as they become available. But it's crazy. It's like, you know, you have the state fire marshal being called in because of an explosion, and people aren't really, you know, talking about it. And that's what's wild. It is sad. It's sad as hell that we live in a society that people care more about them and theirs than caring about everybody. Because even though we pay for individuals, for like nonprofits to care about everybody, that's not what happens. That's not the case. That's not how it goes. I mean, we've seen when it comes through 990 forms that it's not like that. But so last night in Rochester was chaotic. You had an explosion, killed a woman. Gunfire rang out across town, leaving a man shot. The details are still coming in, but this type of stuff we keep warning about. Our cities aren't safe, whether it's drugs, guns, or just sheer recklessness. The streets don't respect law and order anymore. And if we don't start taking this problem seriously, and if we keep pretending like these crime waves are just random accidents, then we're setting ourselves up for even things that are going to be way worse. And that's what I want people to look back and think on is too, is like, just because we talk about Minneapolis and St. Paul and maybe, you know, some of the other big cities like Rochester, St. Cloud, Duluth, Albert Lee, and we don't really talk about, you know, the rural cities like, you know, Grand Meadow, Austin, you know, Bemidji, Hibbing, we still have these stories. They're just not spotlighted. And that's the one crazy part, because there's not really too many people that, just like here in Grand Meadow where I live, right? You look at all these parts, because until mainstream media came out here and wanted to report on it, they were quiet. Because when an everyday citizen came out here and was reporting on it, they didn't want to listen. And that people were being paid. I didn't care. So I just want people to understand is like, we shouldn't have to go through this. Why isn't it we just can't tell the truth? Isn't that what this is all about, is just telling the truth? That's what I don't understand. It's like, when can we go back as a nation of just caring about the truth? Why can't we go back to caring about the truth and nothing but the truth, so help us God? Because to be honest, nobody cares about that anymore. Nobody cares about us being seen equally or everybody being treated the same, because as long as your area is being treated good, it's okay. So oh damn, that's crazy. Oh, block me off for a minute. I wanted to show something. So a coalition of state attorney generals sued the Trump administration Tuesday over its decision to cut $11 billion in federal funds that go towards COVID-19 initiatives and various public health projects across the country's attorney generals from 23 states. So I'm sure Minnesota is one of them, because we are Democratic. And it's, I don't understand it. Because, that's the one thing. Our public education system, our schools are going to be, are going to feel this. They're going to be greatly affected. And I want to show this. Whoops, that's the wrong. I don't know how to make that picture bigger. So this little boy is missing. Trying to pull it up. So Marvin Terry out of Minneapolis, a 10-year-old boy, went missing this morning. And if you are out and about and you are able to go look around your area, please go look around your neighborhood, because Marvin Terry is missing. The police are asking for help. He's a 10-year-old boy. He left home on Knox. Damn, that's crazy. So he left last night. Damn, in Knox. That's one of the worst areas too. So anyone with information on his whereabouts is asked to call 911. I'm always fuck 12, fuck the police, but I care more about our community members, about doing the right thing, than I care about being called a snitch or being called a police lover, any of that shit. Because I want to see change in our communities, and I don't care what you call me, because I don't care about that. Also, a man died last night in St. Paul after being stabbed multiple times. And that's crazy. So here goes a story. Probably a commercial first, but yeah, naturally.
We are following a developing story from overnight. Police say a man is dead after stabbing in St. Paul.
And right now, police are searching for the suspect or suspects. To knew her in the live center with this developing story, what we have learned from police overnight. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Tom and Kelly. So the stabbing happened around 11:30 last night in the Dayton's Bluff neighborhood on the east side of St. Paul. Police say they received a 911 call about an injured man in front of a home. Officers, they arrived to find a man between 19 and 20 years old with several stab wounds. He was taken to the hospital where he later died. Now, police say right now they have it coming through all the evidence to try to get a better idea about what happened. That includes going door to door to look at ring cameras.
Officers are canvassing the scene. Everybody's officers canvassing the scene and the neighborhood to see if anything to us.
All right, so this is just a closer look at where this all happened. So it's on 6th Street East and Etna Street, so just a block away from Harding High School near the intersection of Johnson Parkway and Minnehaha Avenue there. Police say they've been called to this area before, but never this particular home. This is the second homicide in 2025 here in St. Paul, so we will continue to follow this and let you know how things develop as police.
Damn, that's crazy as hell. Like, when are we going to start doing better, people? When are we going to start looking out for our neighbors? And when we see wrong being done, we'll say something about it, because this shit's getting crazy, y'all. Everybody's talking about, oh, just do the right thing. And yet people are dying left and right and people don't say shit. Blows my mind, man. Blows my mind. Blows my mind. Just the same thing with, if people don't know what's going on in Atlanta, there was a swatting call and an individual died. His name was Young Scooter. Said there was a woman, it was a domestic violence situation going on. The call came from, wasn't even in Atlanta, it was somewhere else. So check more into that and pray for Young Scooter's family and pray for accountability and justice. And with that being said, man, I want y'all to have a wonderful Tuesday and have a great day. And with that being said, win or fail, freedom or jail, heaven or hell, wish me well. And I'll see y'all tomorrow here at Streets Dirty and Young Scooter.
My buddy calling up for some green dots. I spent like $2 million on green dot card. Damn. Gave Yo a whole 10 and he didn't deserve it. Gave him in 15 and it really hurt me. Gave Trotter 30 Senate and I'm still working. Gave Leader Light Senate and we still serving. Streets, man, they real dirty. These streets, man, they real dirty. Niggas, man. These cops, man, they playing it dirty. They gonna do their time and they gonna try to take everybody down with them.
They gave my brother a dime and I was right there. In the Fed building, felt like he got the chair. He called me from the cab on that same day. I beat them folks there, but Jake couldn't find a yay. 200 in the suitcase, blow fast for everybody and they lawyers so they could try to wag. Whole flam charged up, even got my daddy and my stepmama too. They all jaw with trafficking. It hurt me to my heart, boy, I swear to God. That nigga gave me anything I wanted, boy. Had bruh in the same place, meet you at. Gave bruh that dime, but best believe he coming back.
Gave Yo a whole 10 and he didn't deserve it. Gave him in 15 and it really hurt me. Gave Trotter 30 Senate and I'm still working. Gave Leader Light Senate and we still serving. Streets, man, they real dirty. These streets, man, they real dirty. Niggas, man. These cops, man, they playing it dirty. They gonna do their time and they gonna try to take everybody down with them.
Worst charge I ever caught, me and Lil Josh. Right to keep it real, cousin got the plug and ran out. You know that's my nigga still, he a black amigo boss. Right hand snitching nowadays, you can triple cross. They gave 555, nigga ran off in his house. Yo, got a 10, I sat down, that's something to think about. Same case I caught with Lil Josh, he helped me bond out. I wish I could help him now, but he can't bond out. He says old childhood friend told on him. Knowing when he had no clothes, you put some clothes on him. So I put darker tint on the Range Rover. If you ain't working with a brick, dope game over.
Gave Yo a whole 10 and he didn't deserve it. Gave him in 15 and it really hurt me. Gave Trotter 30 Senate and I'm still working. Gave Leader Light Senate and we still serving. Streets, man, they real dirty. These streets, man, they real dirty. Niggas,